Hi, I'm Ryan.
And I'm Dillon.
And welcome to the show where we review books and their movie adaptations. One of us reads the book and then watches the movie. The other one watches the movie and then reads the book. And we give you our recommendations for which order gives you the best experience.
Yes, and today we are talking about Love in the Time of Cholera. This time I read the book first, so I'll tell you about the book. Love in the Time of Cholera was published for the first time in 1985 by the Colombian writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It was translated from the original Spanish into English by Edith Grossman 3 years later in 1988. It was published almost 20 years after Marquez's other famous novel, 100 Years of Solitude. He's considered one of the most influential writers in Spanish literature for sure, but also world literature in general from the 20th century. And the story of this book centers around three main characters, I would say. Florentino Ariza and Fermina Daza fall in love when they're young. But then later, Fermina Daza decides to marry a wealthier guy, a doctor, Dr. Juvenal Urbino. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say at the beginning of the book, it's in the future when they're older and Fermina Daza's husband passes away and Florentino Ariza shows up at the funeral and says, "I've been waiting for you this whole time. I'm in love with you." And from there it flashes back to tell the story from the beginning to see what is this strange love story, if you can call it that.
So what ends up being 20 some odd years later, they make a movie out of this, 2007, directed by Mike Newell, starring Giovanna Mezzogiorno as Fermina.
Yeah. Okay.
Javier Bardem as Florentino, Benjamin Bratt as Juvenal, and also has some appearances by a couple other well-known actors, John Leguizamo and Liev Schreiber from Sphere.
Yeah, I was excited to see that when he popped up.
Yeah.
And the plot
is basically the same as the book, yeah.
Okay, so before we get into talking about what we thought of these, I actually have a little game to play.
Okay.
Or a question to ask you with some different parts to it. Because one of the main ideas of the book is, quote, "The symptoms of love were the same as those of cholera." Mm-hmm. So there's this idea of comparing love and cholera and how they make you feel.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. That line I thought was kind of a throwaway line at the beginning, but it kind of comes back to be important. But I wanted to test that out to see if we agree with that idea. Mm. What I have here is a list of the symptoms of cholera, according to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. So I have 10 symptoms. I'm just going to say one. You tell me yes or no. Does it sound like a symptom of love as well? Number 1 is rapid heart rate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one's accurate. Your heart speeds up. Number 2 is restlessness or irritability.
I don't know. Restlessness I could agree with. Irritability, I don't know if I agree with that one as much.
Yeah.
That one's a maybe.
Restlessness, yes. Irritability, maybe at moments. I can still see that one.
Yeah, you're just in a heightened state.
More emotional.
Yeah.
Something like that. Number 3, though, is thirst.
Well.
Yeah.
Thirst
Not
in the slang sense.
Yeah. So we're still on yes, maybe. Number 4 is vomiting. If you're really nervous.
If you're really nervous, I don't think I've been nauseous.
Maybe if you.
I have a lowered appetite. That's a thing that happens. I'm nervous, and then we go out to eat or something, and
you're not so hungry.
I don't eat as much as normal.
Yeah,
but I'm not nauseous, so I would say still no on vomiting.
Okay, I'm sure some people though. I mean, comment below if you ever vomited before or after a first date.
I'm sure people would, just not me.
Yeah. Okay. Number 5 is low blood pressure.
I would think it would be high blood pressure, yeah.
Because rapid heart rate, you're more
I would say no on that one.
Okay, so we're straying. The comparison's starting to make less sense, and I think it's going to get worse. The next one is leg cramps.
No, I've never had leg cramps.
Probably not. Depends on what you're doing. But 7 is profuse watery diarrhea.
No, I mean, that's extreme. I mean, that could go hand in hand with some people with the vomiting. Some people get that from being nervous.
Yeah, okay, so you're nervous for the date. You lost your appetite. You don't want to eat. You're thirsty. You're just drinking a lot, you know? Could
yeah,
lead to
I think that's a
diarrhea.
possibility. I think that's just as much as some of is vomiting. I'm on the same page with both of those ones. Not for me, but for some people, I think those ones are okay.
Okay, just a couple more. Number 8 is loss of skin elasticity.
Well, that would be like from dehydration.
Dehydration.
I don't think you're going to get that dehydrated from love.
And that pretty much rounds it out, because then we have dry mucous membranes and kidney failure caused by the dehydration.
No, I think the last few. But
so the early signs,
at least,
the early signs of cholera, you could be like, do I have cholera or am I in love?
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea.
I think that's mostly what the idea was going for here in this.
Yeah. I think it works then. I just thought that would be fun to go through and see how that metaphor holds up. So I read the book first. Would you want to talk about the book first, or do you have...
I don't have anything else. Yeah, no, we can talk about the book first.
Yeah, maybe we'll go back and forth.
Transitioning from the symptoms there... I think that's portrayed way more in the book. He has like bowel problems.
Yeah.
Florentino does.
Yeah.
In the book, I don't remember that from the movie. I don't, or if they did, it was almost not at all.
Yeah, they don't linger on it so much. I mean, the book is really long.
Yeah, it's very long
detailed.
and very detailed. Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of that is missing from the movie, and it made the movie seem really short to me. After reading the book, even though it's like
reading the book,
it's like 2 hours long.
It made the book seem very long.
Yeah.
To me, because I know pretty much most of the details from the book, and then it's like, okay, this, but then excruciating detail.
Yeah,
so you're getting the idea from me. I did not like the book.
Makes sense. It's hard for me to explain, because the book, if I can compare it to A Time to Kill, just 2 episodes ago, we read that. I kind of feel the opposite about it in a way, where with A Time to Kill, I liked the plot, I was interested in the story, but I didn't like the writing style.
Yes.
So that's how I felt about this one the other way.
The writing is great. The writing style, like
it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to find something wrong with the writing style, from a literary artistic standpoint. I think it's good.
So that's pretty much how I felt about it. The story, like you said, it was rambling almost, like just meandering. Like, what does any of this have to do with anything in the story? I was invested, like, kind of at the beginning at a few random points, but for most of it I'm like, okay, why are we hearing about this? I
think I agree. I think we're a lot on the same page of that. Where I was invested for some of the beginning when it's with Dr. Urbino. Yeah, I was close.
Urbino, you like, put them together.
I did, yeah. When it was really going on about like stuff he was trying to do to combat cholera in the city, and there was some details like that I liked that were more of a historical details. I did like that.
They talk about how they discovered that it was spreading through the water and things like that, and his plan. Yeah.
Whereas I know I'm going to get some flack from this take, but I don't like. So here's a thing I don't like is those fantasy novels that like fantasy epics, right? Like Game of Thrones. Even I haven't read Game of Thrones, but. Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, even. This is why I'm getting a lot of flack. These have
the very popular
the fan base is very popular, but they do that extra detail about feasts and the songs that are in there and things that to me are like, it's world building. I don't know. I'm not always there for the world, and that's what this is, but it's just not high fantasy.
True, yeah.
But it's like that. It's an epic where it just gives you all the details, every single detail about everything, and it's just, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
I like it to be a little more succinct.
That reminded me of a few things. One is that Marquez is known for magical realism is one thing. Like, 100 Years of Solitude is supposed to have magical elements that would make sense to have this big kind of fantasy world building, but this one doesn't have any. It's all realism. So it's like, I agree with you that you don't really need to build the world of just a real place. Like, it's it's not like you have to talk about this fantasy race of people in some faraway land and like create a new language.
That's true.
So it's like you don't really need all that detail. One thing that, again, to go back to the writing style, the plot, I wasn't into it, but I found myself putting little sticky notes for a lot of lines that I liked. And then one thing that I found interesting about his writing style is I would describe it as the tone is exactly the same the whole time, because there's a third-person omniscient narrator. You're never like from the perspective of one character. And in a way, it's kind of dry and like written like it's academic or something almost. But I don't know, something was really intriguing to me about how if he's describing the trees or the weather, it's like the same tone as when the husband kills his wife for cheating on him. It's all just kind of flat, like nothing's more important than the other thing. Something about that, it just was really interesting to me by the end of it. And I like the ending of the story a lot. So after all this meandering plot, it was losing me, but the ending saved it a lot for me. I really liked the way it ended. For some reason, it just hit home for me. How did you feel about the ending after making it all the way through the whole thing?
I was just glad to be done with it. The ending of the movie brought the movie score up a little bit for me.
Oh, okay.
And not to transition potentially a little bit into the movie. I also did not like the movie.
Oh, okay.
I felt very much the same about it, and that probably made me dislike the book a lot more, because I watched the long movie going, oh my gosh, I don't care.
Now you have to read something even longer.
I just felt like I didn't care about any of the characters in the movie. I felt like the acting didn't make me care about any of the characters in the movie. It seemed kind of dry. So then when I got through that, I was like, this is such a long book I have to get through now. And then I was just laboring through it the whole time.
I kind of agree about none of the characters are particularly likable. Or like, I wasn't rooting for either of the men or either of the couples really. But I think Javier Bardem's acting was good in that character. It mostly stuck out to me because what happened to me is I read the book first and I knew there was a movie. I saw the cover. I knew the cast. And I did the thing where I flip-flopped them in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
So the whole time reading the book, I thought Javier Bardem was going to be the doctor. Like the more successful, I don't know, manly guy. I don't know, my own typecasting. I pictured, what's the other actor's name?
Benjamin Bratt.
From Miss Congeniality.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be like the romantic guy that's like pining for her the whole time. Maybe it's because I just looked at this cover and it shows like the two of them as lovers and then Javier Bardem's in the front. I thought that's like he's the doctor not really paying attention. They're being romantic in the background secretly. So the whole book, long book, that just was like the image I had in my mind. So when I started the movie and Javier Bardem was the Florentino Ariza, it just threw me off. I was like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah, you did what I did with The Prestige.
Where you switch. And that's a confusing one to do it with. So that threw me off, but then I ended up thinking Javier Bardem did a great job being the kind of strange, sometimes pathetic, romantic guy. I also liked the scene. I just remembered when he gets a job and he has to write like the business memos and he can't help but write them like their love letters. Yeah. And his boss is telling him like, this is your business letter. It's like, oh, thank you so much for selling us this product. The more I read the receipt, the faster my heart was beating. Yeah. I don't know. There's some funny stuff in there, but overall, I didn't like the movie a lot either. I was hoping to like it more. One selling point for me was that it says Shakira is on the soundtrack. That's like part of the selling point, how they advertise it. But it wasn't enough. She was barely in the soundtrack. I felt like...
I don't even remember.
I remember one part particularly. I felt like it wasn't put in there very well. There was only a couple parts where it played her songs, and one part it was like when John Leguizamo's her father, and he sends her away up to that mountain place, and it plays her song Pienso en Ti, which is like just a what do you call that? Just vocals, no instruments. Oh. It's like an a cappella thing. So it's just her vocals that they play over shots of Colombian rainforest, and they're riding the horse carriage up there, and it didn't seem to like fit into the movie like a good soundtrack does. It was just like, bam, here's a Shakira song over a spot. So I don't know, that was just something that stuck out to me as being kind of clunky in the movie.
Mm-hmm. I think both of them overall, a big thing I didn't like, like you already said, you didn't like the plot really. Yeah. Some parts of it. I don't like it's a very classic thing to do where a guy falls in love with a girl and she rejects him in some way, and then he spends the rest of his life still in love with her to an unhealthy degree. Yeah. You know, like in this, Florentino sleeps with 600 women or something.
That, like 622 or something. Specific like
that. And I'm reading it going like, this is just not the mentally healthy way to deal with a rejection.
That's true.
You know, like you can find somebody better who also loves you from the beginning, you know, and not wait 60 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't like that. And that also turned me off from the beginning with both of these. I don't like that kind of a story.
It's certainly not a good message. I don't know though, because it's curious. Like, it depends on if you read it as being romantic or a love story or not, because
that's true. I mean,
because I don't get to the end of it thinking like, oh, that's so romantic. It's more like just funny and absurd, because
I guess,
I like at least that Fermina Daza doesn't believe him at the end when he says like, I saved myself for you. And she's like, yeah, okay. So it's just, I don't know, it's just funny and weird. But I understand that. So. I think that's a good critique. And it sounds like you're going to rate both of these lower than I did. I have a feeling.
I have that feeling also.
I'm interested to hear what your scores are. But I'll say mine first because I read the book first. I read the book first and gave it a 7.
Okay.
It's a solid 7.0. Then I watched the movie, gave it a 6.5.
Okay.
What about you?
I watched the movie first and gave it a 4.5.
Okay. 2 points lower.
And then I read the book and gave it a 5.1.
Okay.
So I did like the book better, and because of the fact that of the writing. The writing is good. It's hard to knock it much further down, even though I had a horrible time reading this book. It's better than the movie.
Okay. You know, we're actually like kind of the same distance between our individual scores. You said 4.5, 5.1. I did 6.5, 7. So, I'm not mad
we
at
both
that.
think the book is better.
Yeah. Interesting. At least we can agree on that. Now we are going to combine our scores into our collective recommendation. That way we can see if we think these are underrated or overrated.
So the book comes out to an average of 6.05 between the two of us. Mm-hmm.
And the movie averages out to a 5.5. So they're both just kind of all right.
Yeah.
In the middle there.
Yeah.
And on Goodreads, the book has an average rating of 3.93 out of 5.
Wow, almost
an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
That's really
it's very
high.
Overrated.
Yeah, we could say
how did so many people getting through this book? Is what I'm gonna say.
You know, before we get into the movie, one thought I had is maybe it's better in Spanish.
That's possible.
There was one moment here that there was a line that made me think, that sounds like a bad translation. Mm-hmm. And I haven't read the Spanish. I don't know if it's a bad translation. I don't want to say anything bad about the translator, but this is the English version's reviews on here, so it's overrated. Now for the movie, Rotten Tomatoes, the critics give it a 27% and the audience a 45%.
So I nailed the audience score.
Yeah.
On that one. That's what I gave it.
Spot on.
So we still, though, as a average here, say that it's an underrated movie.
We have to say it's underrated. Maybe not by a lot.
Critics hated this movie.
27% is really bad.
That's very bad.
Yeah. Critic consensus, though beautifully filmed, the makers of Love in the Time of Cholera fail to transfer the novel's magic to the screen. So they loved the book. They
liked the book. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the movie's basically the book. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar. But we both agreed the book is better. But what happened here is we say the book is very overrated. So that made people have high hopes for the movie and therefore underrate it, even though we agree the book is better.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting one. We did not fall between the critic and audience this time.
Yeah. So I guess we should give our final recommendations though.
Yeah.
On which one you should consume first. Mm-hmm. You want to give yours first? You read.
Yeah. I did like the book. I would say read the book. Maybe just read the book.
Skip the movie.
Yeah, I think you could skip the movie. The book, I do want to recommend it because by the end, I liked it. And it was hard to get through. I probably would not have finished it if we weren't doing it for this.
Yeah.
That's why I think I would like to say read the book because it's worth it. When you think about quitting, just keep going to get through it. Then you could say you read it.
I'm gonna say skip both.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna say skip both. I understand what you're saying with the book, but it is also true that I would not have finished this book. I don't think if we weren't doing this, and it didn't bring it up to me to end it. Although I agree, I did kind of like the end. It kind of wrapped it up and brought stuff together, but it's not enough.
Not enough for you to say, "Oh, I'm glad I actually finished it."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. So these kind of got medium tepid ratings. Let's see where they land on our overall ongoing list of all.
We've got
what do we have? 38
things on this list now, and the first one that we get down to between these two is the book at a 6.05 comes in at number 32 out of 38.
That is low, and the
we
movie
go
is even
further
lower.
down here to number 36, the third worst thing we've ever done. The movie Love in the Time of Cholera, 5.5,
barely beating the Interviews with a Vampire, and I'm okay with that because I would rather rewatch this movie that I'm telling you to skip than rewatch Interview with the Vampire. Personally, okay. So that was Love in the Time of Cholera. What are we doing next?
Next month, what we have for you is another Michael Crichton book.
Awesome.
A book called A Case of Need. An older one, actually written under a pseudonym.
One of his early medical novels. Then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was adapted into a movie in the 70s, I believe
so, yeah.
Called The Carey Treatment. So that's what we're reading next month. And as for Love in the Time of Cholera, viewer, you tell me, which is better, the book or the movie?
Let us know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends to tune in too.
You can click another video now. Thank you. Bye.